What I see most of the time, because I work with people driving towards success, working for success, I see most of the time this scenario where they're really strong on the improvement. I'm telling you, they work hard to do a good job. They get noticed for the good job. They get the raise. They get the promotion because they're known to do a good job. They're dependable. They're accountable. All those things are great, but inside they're not happy. Hey there, and welcome to the Unleash Your Greatness Within podcast. Real quick, do you have a challenge with perfectionism? I'll tell you what, I'm gonna counsel you and coach you to stop your perfection. Stop your perfectionism. I tell you what, it'll destroy your family, it'll destroy your culture, it'll destroy your happiness, it'll destroy your goals in the long term. I'm telling you, there's a balance when it comes to perfectionism. Now, as part of this, I'm going to share with you some great statistics and some graphs around getting the balance right between self-improvement and perfectionism, and also self-acceptance, because they both have to work together in harmony to be successful. And most of the time with high achievers and leaders is they've got them flipped. They're really strong on the perfectionism and the self-improvement. You'll see the graph in a second when I show you, but then they're really low on the self-acceptance. And so I spend a lot of my time as I coach people on helping them get that balance right between the two and still achieve a lot of success. But I don't know if you saw my podcast with Dr. Nate Zinsser just a little while ago. If you haven't seen it, you can watch the whole video or download the whole interview. But part of that interview was a short clip, about 4 minutes long, where we talk about perfectionism and how that gets in the way of high achievement and high performance. So it just so happens that Dr. Nate Zinsser is the director of psychology and performance program at West Point. He's worked with people like Eli Manning and other athletes and celebrities and so forth. And I tell you, it was just a joy to have him on my podcast. So let's jump right into that as we talk about perfectionism and getting that balance right. All right, check this out.
You already know. My passion and my mission to help you unleash your greatness within. My heart goes out to the underdogs that's on their way. If you think you can go from good to great, okay, let's motivate. GreatnessWithin.com. TJ Hoisington. GreatnessWithin.com.
Perfectionism. And I think people listening to this, as I work with people, I find that they are so analytical and so striving to be perfect that they beat themselves up because they're not perfect enough. And this is what you said in the book, and then I'd love to have your thought on it. You said, and it has to do with what stories you're telling yourself. You said there are disturbingly similar stories of talented and dedicated people ruining their careers because they cannot accept the simple truth that they will never be perfect. And then you go on to say, research shows that the highest achievers in any field are those with only moderate levels of perfectionism.
I think the research confirms what I've seen just in a clinical, in my clinical work. People who are very, very, very perfectionistic are so good at focusing almost exclusively on their setbacks, mistakes, and imperfections that they build a level of physical tension, a level of emotional worry, which in turn inhibits their next performance. It's a form of sabotage, if you will.
Yeah.
Perfection is a wonderful thing to strive toward. We should all attempt to be absolutely freaking perfect every time we practice and every time we play. However, striving for perfection is one thing, and that's fine, but demanding perfection from yourself each and every time is a killer. When I say don't demand it, I simply mean if you don't achieve it, acknowledge that, forgive yourself for being an imperfect human, and get back to work and see what you can learn from your imperfection. See if you can be curious about it to the point where you can learn what it's teaching you and that'll help you get closer and closer and closer.
Wow, I love that. Strive for perfectionism. It's a great thing, but none of us are going to be perfect. So don't demand it.
Right.
Oh,
Don't demand it when you don't achieve it. Okay.
yes. Yes.
This is a tough thing for a lot of people to put into regular practice because we have a fairly results-oriented, perfectionistic, striving culture.
That's right.
Here in America, North America, most of the industrialized world. And we haven't given the same degree of respect and appreciation for a little compassion and how far that can go in keeping you energized.
Okay. Now, what'd you think of that little clip there? I mean, powerful stuff, right? Strive to be perfect, but don't demand it. That is a huge distinction. Here's what I find with people. So one of the things that we do as we consult and we do a lot of private coaching to increase performance of individuals and so forth, there's a tool that I use called the Harrison assessments. And I've used DISC and Myers-Briggs and so forth. And I'm not a big believer in personality tests because and that would be go along with strength finders and so forth. Personality tests, it's difficult to change a personality. And so, but what the Harrison assessment does is it can track all 175 of your human traits. And it's very detailed. And we work through that. But what it also comes out with is your 12 paradoxes. Every human being has 175 traits that they have. And those boil down to 12 paradoxes. In life, human beings have 12 paradoxes. And you can just see right here, the 12 paradoxes. I'll just name a few of them. As you can see here, you have the interpersonal column, the achievement column, and the leadership column. And let me just quickly say that a paradox is where you have two, what would be perceived at the surface level as not related, but they're actually related at both ends of the spectrum. And so the key to success is being balanced in life, to drive, but also be balanced in other areas. And so as you can see on this image that you're looking at right here, is you have different things like opportunity management, coaching mindset, equity mindset. That's a big thing right now. I tell you, a lot of leaders get stuck in this equity mindset. And I'm not going to talk about that in today's video, but there's several paradoxes that play a role. And the key is to be in the upper right-hand corner box. That is where there's balance, there's moderation, and you're most effective as you work through your challenges and solutions and you work with people and so forth. You want to be in that upper right-hand box. So the one I want to focus on that has to do with perfectionism is the self paradox. And in the self paradox, the two attributes or traits that go against each other is on one side, self-acceptance, which means I'm okay the way I am, right? You're happy with yourself. You're comfortable in your own skin and so forth. It's kind of the self-esteem side. And at the bottom, the thing that can pull away from that sometimes is our self-improvement score, right? There's two different traits. You all have a score. If we were to test you, you would have a score of what your self-improvement trait is, but also what your self-acceptance trait is. And so how do they play a role? Well, here's what I find. This image right here is an example of a person who has a healthy self paradox, right? And the kind of the definition of this is how you manage self-esteem and self-improvement. That's going to be really key. But as you can see here, both scores are above 7. So as you look at this, you got both scores above 7, which puts the score in that upper right-hand corner box, which indicates a healthy balance between self-esteem and also achievement. Here is what I have found after years of coaching people. particularly leaders, I have seen this, is many of them actually look like this. This is very common with leaders. They have a higher score on self-improvement and a lower score on self-acceptance. I'll show you something more extreme right now. What I often find in a high percentage of leaders and high achievers is that they have a really strong drive for self-improvement, right? It's getting to that next meeting. It's going to that next conference. It's learning all that you can learn and then using that to justify your own self-worth. And I'm telling you what, that is a poor strategy for living happy, fulfilled, and being a high achiever. The key to being a high achiever and happy while you're doing it is to be in this upper right-hand box. But as you can see here, this person is really strong at perfectionism, if you will, always working on themselves, always developing themselves. But then they use that to prove their self-worth, right? And the problem is they live in this lower box, which is they live in the self-critical, I don't know if you can see that, the self-critical quadrant here. Where you want to live is in the healthy self-esteem quadrant. You're living in the self-critical. And here's what happens under stress with someone whose reality looks like this, is they tend to flip and it creates a hurricane, and the size of that hurricane makes a big difference, right? How intense that flip is for you. But that person who has a low self-acceptance and a high self-improvement score, if you're questioned on something, boom, you might fly into the fight or flight mode, which would be the fight mode, and you will flip out and become, if you can see it there, you will become defensive. So let me ask you, have you ever become defensive? Have you ever worked really hard at something only to be questioned and then called out? Even if you're called out in a nice way and you felt internally that you kind of got a little bit defensive, yeah, here's what I would tell you. That would be a sign that yes, you have a strong drive to improve, but maybe your self-acceptance score is a little bit low. Here's my suggestion. I've taught my kids this ever since they were young. Your self-worth as an individual, your worth and potential, doesn't increase or decrease based on the quality of work or achievement that you achieve, right? Or that you work on. Doesn't increase. Someone with I'm talking about someone with a healthy self-esteem. They always desire to do good, but when they don't do good, they don't punish themselves 1,000 times in their own thinking through regret or playing the movie over and over and over. No, they know that they're a person of worth. They know that they have value, and that does not prevent them from still becoming whatever that they want to become. Now, is it possible that someone could be a 10 on self-esteem and a 2 on self-improvement? Yeah. The problem is they're so happy with themselves, they don't feel the need to grow. And that can happen every once in a while. But I got to be honest with you, I don't see that very much. What I see most of the time, because I work with people driving towards success, working for success, I see most of the time this scenario where they're really strong on the improvement. I'm telling you, they work hard to do a good job. They get noticed for the good job. They get the raise. They get the promotion because they're known to do a good job. They're dependable. They're accountable. All those things are great. But inside, they're not happy. Inside, they're not fulfilled. And why is that? It's because they've attached their perfectionism to their innate worth. And I'm saying that's a dangerous place to be. So what are we saying? Strive, as Dr. Nate Zinsser said, strive for perfection, but don't demand it. Find some balance between I did a good job or I did a really good job, but I also like myself and appreciate myself and believe I'm capable of great things. Now remember, the key is to have both scores high, not one or the other, because then that makes you off balance, right? So when you're really strong in one trait and not in the opposite trait, the yin and the yang, guess what? That makes that strength actually a weakness because you're hard to work with. Okay, so I just tried to share some of the data with you. Listen, if you would like to have a Harrison assessment done on you, where we can track all 175 traits that you have as an individual, the level of, let's say, acknowledgement or recognition that you have, the level of seeking to achieve goals, or your authoritative level, the desire to lead and to guide others. And there's 175 of these that are, you're assertive. Do you take time to put forth your own wants and needs, or are you just really helpful all the time? And then you become the bottleneck of future success. Now, we don't need to go into all those paradoxes, but if you're interested in having some private coaching by me, I will do that. And we'll run this report on you. It's a simple assessment. But let me tell you something, it spits out a report that is over 40 pages long, and it gives you so much data that's written directly to you based on your individual characteristics. And the beautiful thing is, as I work with people over a period of time, we take another test, and I got to tell you what, they change or improve in some of the traits that they want to work on. When they set goals to improve on a trait, and I tell you what, everything affects everything else. All of a sudden, these people start becoming more effective. Maybe, here's another paradox, right? As a leader, is maybe you're really good with enforcement, and that's a really good score, but your warmth and empathy score is only a 2. Does that cause a problem? You bet. The flip side will also cause a problem. You could be a 10 on warmth and empathy, but only a 2 on enforcement, and people don't respect you, right? They like you, but they don't respect you. So the key is getting both of those balanced so you're up in that right-hand corner. All right, I know I went long. Hopefully that makes sense. I just want you to think about perfectionism. Get rid of trying to be perfect all the time. Just do the best job you can do. You're only in competition with your own best self. Remember, your potential and your worth doesn't increase or decrease. It may in the marketplace, but not your innate worth, will not increase or decrease based on the level of performance, the success or the failure that you have. The key is to be happy within your own skin, all right? And everybody has the potential to get there. Whether you grew up with a lot of love or not, you can get there if you fill your mind with the right things. And that's what we try to do here on the Unleash Your Greatness Within podcast, is fill your mind with positive, upbeat material and real material with meat that isn't just positive thinking. It actually is applicable and real and causes you to think a little bit deeper. Sometimes you got to pull the weeds out of the garden. Jim Rohn would always say that. You got to pull the weeds out of the garden, and we help you find the weeds and then give you tools to help you improve. So go to greatnesswithin.com and let us know if you'd be interested in me working with your team. Let me know if you'd be interested in working with you individually, and we'll run the report. Hey, we'll see what it comes up with, and then I'll give you some tools on how to improve and become even more effective while liking yourself at the same time. All right, does that make sense? All right, I wish you the best. Go out there and be a high achiever, but keep it in check. Now go unleash your greatness within.